Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Guelph, who was good enough to share his time with me, and indeed all those individuals from all different political parties who've been so supportive and helpful over the years. It's with mixed emotions that I rise today, of course, to give what will be my farewell address in this chamber, the People's House. 35 years ago, the people of Niagara Falls first elected me as their Member of Parliament, and I will be forever grateful to them. I'm proud today to be wearing the Nicholson tartan tie here for this occasion, and I'm pleased as well to be wearing this medal that was given to family members of World War I veterans. I've received this first when I was over at Vimy Ridge a couple of years ago, and I was told that the Borden government encouraged people who were related to people who were serving World War I to wear this medal. And so I said, of course, I have two granduncles, Gordon Gunn and Stuart Gunn, who fought in World War II, and so I've been very proud to wear this in public since that time. Madam Speaker, as a boy, I took an interest in Prime Minister John Diefenbaker when during the Kluban missile crisis. If you can imagine, we were talking about it all the time, and I got quite caught up with this, and I wrote to Mr. Diefenbaker, told him of my support for him, and that I had started a fan club in my class on his behalf. And so, among other things, Madam Speaker, I'd like to point out to this chamber that on this day, June 10th, 1957, John Diefenbaker won his first election as Prime Minister of Canada, and that was a great day for this country. At the age of 13, I had the privilege of meeting the Right Honourable John Diefenbaker, and he asked me, did I want to become a Conservative MP someday? And I said, for sure, I would want to. What I didn't know at the time was that since the creation of the Niagara Falls riding, the Liberals had won 5 straight elections. So it came as no surprise to me that years later, my teacher, Mrs. Gordon, told me that when she told other teachers that I wanted to be a Conservative MP someday, one of them said that she should have encouraged me to become the captain of a Zeppelin instead. But, Madam Speaker, I can tell you, in my 24 years of the House of Commons, I've witnessed much. The rise and fall of governments, including my own. Regardless of political stripe, the important thing was that our democracy works, and there is not another country in the world that does it better than Canada. I always tell at citizenship courts and to others that to be a Canadian means that you've won the lotto of life. And that is true consistently with the roles that I've had as Defense, Foreign Minister, and Justice Minister. Wherever I went in the world, countries and their representatives were always completely consistent how appreciative and grateful they were for Canada. I remember being in Afghanistan a few years ago talking with government officials, and they wanted to talk about the difference that Canada and our allies have made. And they said to me that in 2006, 75,000 girls were going to school in Afghanistan. And they told me, and they pointed to me and they said, as you're sitting here, there are 2 million girls going to school in Afghanistan. That's the difference Canada and its allies have made. And you know, Madam Speaker, it's so consistent with wherever you go, that's what it is. And one of the other things that always struck me was the influence of Canada. I remember getting off a plane in Ukraine, and they asked me, would I wear a poppy on my left lapel when I got off the plane? I think it was in March. And I said, well, of course I would. And everywhere I went, I could see posters and people wearing poppies. And so of course, I had checked out my briefing notes. I hadn't seen anything on this particularly. So I asked about this, and they said, well, up till a couple of years ago, Ukraine had commemorated their war dead the way the old Soviet Union did, and they decided to do it different. And so they decided to do what Canada does, which is to wear poppies. A perfect example of our kind of influence. And I remember getting off the plane in the United Arab Emirates and meeting Prince Ramula, who was the foreign minister. And so we made a little bit of chit-chat, and he said to me, my son just completed the Terry Fox run. I said, the Terry Fox run? I said, were you visiting Canada recently? No. He says, it was up in Abu Dhabi. There were 20,000 people in the Terry Fox run. He says, we got the idea from Canada. I said, I know you did. And again, Madam Speaker, this was so consistent with what we have heard, because we have always been there for the right reasons. And one of the things I've always emphasized over the years is the great opportunity there is for this country. And sometimes we don't underscore that enough. I remember back in 1988, I had a meeting with an American congressman, and because we were going to be having an election in later 1988, he said to me, he says, "Have you got your money lined up?" I said, "Well, yeah, my party has a few dollars in the bank." I said, "We can only spend $50,000, and that was the limit in this campaign." He says, "50,000? Oh," he said, "I don't think I could open an office for 50,000. I said, "Well, how much do you have?" Well, he says, I'm running for re-election as a congressman, and I've got $2 million in the bank right now." And I thought to myself, what a wonderful country this is, that, you don't have to have a couple of $1 million to become a member of parliament, or you don't need that kind of money, and you won't be dependent upon people when you have done that. So, Madam Speaker, we are truly blessed to live in this country. And in the words of Prime Minister Diefenbaker, who said, "I am a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind." And say, may all of us in this House, Madam Speaker, continue to value those ideas, because that is what makes Canada great. And it was a great opportunity to be elected in 1984. It was a great day for Canada when Brian Mulroney was elected Prime Minister. I've had so many amazing experiences that I would need much more time than I have today to recall them all. But I do remember, for instance, very soon after being elected, Brian Mulroney sent several of us MPs over to Ethiopia and Sudan to observe that aid was getting through to the people of that country. And it was no surprise to me that it was getting through. The Canadian aid was being delivered on behalf of the people of Sudan and Ethiopia. And again, this is one of the things that's so characteristic of this country. I was proud to be a member of government that enacted the Acid Rain Treaty between Canada and the United States, the Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, and the fact that Brian Mulroney took such a determined stance against apartheid and was the first Western leader to recognize the freedom of Ukraine. One of the last pieces of legislation to be passed under that government was legislation that made the possession of child pornography illegal in Canada. I am most proud of that. As a government, we stood to protect children from falling prey to this heinous crime. I also had the honor of serving under Canada's first female Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Kim Campbell, first as her Parliamentary Secretary and then later as Minister of Science and Small Business. But serving in the cabinet under Right Honourable Stephen Harper was one of the great chapters of my life, as first of all his House Leader, Minister of Justice, Minister of National Defence and Foreign Affairs. I thank him because on the world stage, he stood up consistently for what is right. And he stood up for the integrity of our justice system and the rule of law and for victims of crime. I believe he will go down in history as one of Canada's greatest Prime Ministers. And during my time as an opposition member these last few years, I was very pleased to have passed my private member's bill C-233 on Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. And I also, one of the most poignant memories I have is that after the passing of my friend and colleague, Gord Brown, was my initiative to distribute aspirin pill holders in his memory. And I also want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for having placed his confidence in me. I'm grateful to have served under him as Shadow Minister of Justice and Procurement, and I look forward to, and I thank him for putting my name forward for the National Security Committee. Andrew, Canada is fortunate to have you. There are many I would be remiss if I didn't thank. The countless volunteers who have given up their personal time to elect me. They are all remarkable Canadians, and I owe them a debt of gratitude. I want to thank all those who worked on my federal campaigns, people like the Lyon and Gibson and the Stockton families, and members of my own family who have helped me over 35 years. To Maureen Murphy and the outstanding staff I had the privilege of working with in my ministerial portfolios, and on the Hill and the riding. I can't name all the people, Madam Speaker, who worked in my Hill and constituency office, but I will name those who are with me today. Stuart Graham, Tracy Alway, Anna Annunziata, Jen Stockton, Billy Morrison, and Sherry Elliott. I want them to know that it has been an honor to work with them and a great privilege for me. And to my beautiful wife and partner, Arlene. So often she displayed extraordinary graciousness in not having her husband by her side when duty called. There were many special occasions I was not able to be present at. I often tell people, though, that if their spouse does not support them in their candidacy, they shouldn't get into this job because it's a 24-hour-a-day job. So one of the blessings I've had is the unequivocal backing of my wife, and I thank her for her love and support. I am looking forward to being there for my wife and my family. Arlene, I love you dearly. And to you, my colleagues in the House and those who work with us, thank you. It's been a privilege serving with you. Canada is a better place because of you. Now is the time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. Now is my time and season to say farewell to this venerated chamber. This marks the beginning of a new chapter in my life for Arlene, myself, and our 3 children, Rob, Peter, and Christine. I have enjoyed the journey this far, and I am proud to look forward to what the future holds. I've always been proud to be a loyal subject of Her Majesty the Queen, and I am proud the people of Niagara Falls have given me this privilege of serving in this place. Thank you for the memories, for they will last longer after the goodbyes. Thank you.
I do want to thank the member for his passionate speech and wish him all the best as he starts a new chapter in his life as we head into a different parliament. And I also want to acknowledge a lot of the other speakers that have made their speeches these past few weeks on their farewells to this parliamentary session. So we do have time for questions and comments. I see that the honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby is rising.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I won't be asking a question, but I do have some comments for the honourable member for Niagara Falls. He is the Dean of the Conservative Caucus, and he has the immense respect of members on both sides of this House. There is no doubt, for a number of reasons. First off, Madam Speaker, as you're well aware, he brings a wealth of experience to the House and has always brought that in the work that he does on the chamber floor. And just a quick recounting of his experience: Minister for Science, Minister responsible for small business, Government House Leader at a time of minority parliaments when it is not easy at all to be Government House Leader, but he met that challenge, Minister of Justice, Attorney General, Minister of Defence, and then a variety of critic roles as well, Parliamentary Secretary roles. That experience, Madam Speaker, gives him a wealth of knowledge, and I, for one, in this House, every time he rises to speak, rely on that knowledge. Sometimes I disagree with it, but there is no doubt he brings with that experience wealth and knowledge that contributes to the work of this House of Commons and to Canada in a very real and meaningful way. He's also a very fierce defender of conservative values. And what I appreciate most about the member, I don't always agree with him, but he good times and bad, has always been there for the Conservative Party, even running in some of the most difficult times. And he is very collegial and has members and friends in all the party caucuses and on both sides of this House. So on behalf of the New Democratic Party, I'm sad to see him go, but we all wish him and Arlene all the best in a very well-deserved retirement. He's made a difference in this place, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? L'honorable député de Louis-Saint-Laurent. Oh, sorry, Lac Saint-Louis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I enjoyed listening to the honourable member's speech, and he started by talking about something that we all know is true, that political leaders can have an impact on youth and inspire them to follow a career in politics. He talked about his experience with then Prime Minister Diefenbaker, and I'm sure that the honourable member, through his experience speaking to students and being present in the community, has inspired others to follow in his footsteps. I sincerely hope, however, that he did not irrevocably steer these young people away from running as Liberals, but I don't think he would have, because my experience with the member has always been that he has approached issues and people in this House with graciousness, that he has always, he has never been heavy-handed in his approach and has never resorted to personal attacks. And I think that is a fine example, not only for the youth of this country, but for all Canadians. I had the pleasure of sitting on the Transport Committee with the member when he was re-elected in his return to Parliament, and I've always enjoyed listening to him speak and debate. And I wish him and his family, him and his wife Arlene and his family, the very best going forward. It's been a pleasure to sit in this Parliament with him.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola, and then I'll let the honourable member respond to all of the comments and questions that have kind of been put forward.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to pass on my thanks to the member for his dedication to our great country, to his queen, our queen, and to his family. He's been a fantastic person to learn from, and I will always remember him as being the best Minister of Justice that I've had the opportunity to serve beside. He did many great things to this country, but that's there. But, Madam Speaker, I have to say I've tried unsuccessfully to convince this member that the wines of British Columbia, particularly the Okanagan Valley, are far superior to those of Niagara and Ontario in general. I would like to ask the member now, does he not agree that BC wines are far superior than Ontario wines? Have I finally had some influence on his taste in this perspective? Thank you.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Yes, I don't agree. That being said, the member was doing so well, though, you know, with his comments here, you know what I mean? And then he got a little bit off track. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the members from all three political parties and the different roles that I've had. Many occasions I had the opportunity to work with members and the members of their staff, and it was a great experience for me here, and I grew greater respect for all those who do work, because they truly believed, and as the honourable member for the Liberal Party says, we don't always agree on the same issues, but we passionately agree with what we do understand to be the truth and what's the best for this country. And while we may disagree with that, that respect continues. And so again, thank you very much to all my colleagues. I appreciate it.
Here, here.